we will get cracking, if that's okay. Just to let you know, this is our final locality that we're attending over the week. And I think it's fair to say we haven't had great in-person attendance, and that's probably something to do with the fact that we have agreed, because the sector asked us to be as inclusive as possible, that it was so challenging for them to be able to attend those events, that we have an online process. So we are live streaming, and the videos are online and available for the sector to engage in the process for a week. So that's probably why we don't have so many people in the room, or hopefully anyway. And we've got an online room open as well, a Teams room. So just to let you know, those two things going on. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Kerry. I'm Development Director for the VCS Alliance. Next slide, please. And just a bit of a recap of who we are, but we... No, wrong one. But we are the Health and Care Infrastructure organisation working right across Bradford District and Craven to work with our health and care system and our VCSE sector and act as that bridge between the two. We do that really in three main ways. The first is that we're a risk bearer, both for the system and for the sector. The second is about bringing investment in. We do that from the system and making sure that we are influencing to make sure that monies are then travelling to the sector, but also regionally and nationally. How do we bring investment in and devolve that out to our VCSE sector? And the third way is about harnessing our collective voice as a sector and using that insight to influence strategic direction and to bring information from the system back out to the sector so that we are better informed about how we develop services in line with some of our health needs. Little bit of a recap on integrated neighbourhood health. I'm not going to labour on it. We've had a 10-year plan. We've had Lord Darcy's review. We have had our Bradford District and Craven Health and Care Partnership Health and Wellbeing Strategic Review. And all of that has highlighted and amplified the recognition locally and nationally about the VCSE's role in supporting the health and care system. And really this integrated locality working and the direction of travel is to make sure, and we're used to this as a sector, this is what we've been doing for years, working in a really localised way. But I guess the thing that is hopeful is that all of those strategic documents are pointing and saying we want this to be the norm, just not the exception. So we've got a real opportunity for the sector to play that strategic voice at a localised level, so that we can make positive strides toward those shifts around hospital to community, treatment to prevention, and analogue to digital. Okay, so a bit about the locality lead role. I think it's important to note that although we are inviting people and or peoples to take their organisational hat off and sit at a kind of what I would call enactment layer, so that mid-ground between strategy and operations, but to take your organisational hat off to do that and act, represent and advocate on behalf of the sector, we also need to make it really clear that we are remunerating organisations to do that work. We're not going to fund individuals. You must be from an organisation, because we want to be able to backfill your skill, experience, knowledge, and make sure that that's really clear. So as the locality lead, you really will be the go-to voice for the sector right across your locality, and you'll work really closely with community partnership anchors, with forums, with other anchor networks to really gain that insight to use in that strategic layer. You'll also be using shared data, so not just acting as your organisation or having one or two data or impact reports from one or two organisations, but how do we start to really understand the collective impact of the sector right across Bradford East. And you'll be the voice in shaping strategic commissioning. If you saw our roadshows or have seen the videos, we talked a lot about the changes that we're anticipating in commissioning in health. So how do population health and universal proportionalism really fit into a better understanding around Bradford East, and what do we need to do as a sector to respond to that, and also what do the sector need to know to be able to tackle the issues that we're facing and the health inequalities that we see across this locality, and loads more. Next slide, please. Just a recap on the governance structure. This is slightly different to the one in the roadshows. The thing that I really wanted to highlight and acknowledge were these 5 boxes down the side here, which there wasn't necessarily a recognition of who was sat in the partnership and oversight executive in the middle, but we have formulated now that the local authority, the Children's Trust, the Integrated Collaboration Committee, which is that BDCT, the Bradford Teaching Hospitals, and Airedale, that collaborative committee between those 3 acutes, and the GP Alliance. So GP primary care world are out doing a similar process to what we are doing within the sector, and the Alliance, the VCSE Alliance, and of course Sam Keithley is our representative as sector lead in that decision-making layer. Underneath that, it's now been formulated and agreed that there'll be a collaboration programme board. Sam will also sit in that board. And underneath that, we've got the Integrated Acute Care Delivery Group, which is really tackling that hospital to community shift, which I'm commissioned to sit as part of. And then the Integrated Neighbourhood Health and Care Delivery Group, which I also sit on, as well as Helen Davey, who is our mental health representative for the sector as well. And then you can see we've got our 6 locality anchors. Now, in some places, we've had partnership applications, so that may not just be 6 people, but there will certainly be 6 representations from each of those localities, and of course our community partnership anchors. So you can start to see then how the governance structure and the accountability framework starts to be layered, particularly within our part from a sector perspective. Next slide, please. Okay, so what happens now? We have 4 candidates today that are putting themselves forward as sector lead for Bradford East. One of those is a partnership, so actually 5 people for 4 presentations. We'll be asking that you spend up to 5 minutes presenting why it is that you would be a good fit to represent the VCSE sector within your locality, and then we'll have up to 10 minutes for questions and answers. It's really important for us. This is a large-scale recruitment process. We've had 19 applications across the district. So it's really important that everybody who takes the time out to put themselves forward has some feedback about themselves within this process. So what we're asking you to consider, and it's also crucial to the voting process, are what has impressed you about the person and why, about their presentation, and what areas of development might you suggest for that individual as well. I'll go on to why it's important in the voting process a little bit later. I'll just go back a second. I'm not sure if I missed something here. No, that's okay, right. I will be timekeeper. 5 minutes, I will give you a little wave when you've got 1 minute to go, unless you'd like a different time. You can't have extra, Carlton. I don't think I can give you extra. No, you've got 5 minutes. I'll give you a minute when you've got a wave when you've got a minute to go. And just important around the voting process itself. So we have devised this process to be as inclusive as we possibly can of the whole of the sector. We've really listened to what you have said, and part of that was around, although the framework of this piece of work is geographically based, there are also many of our organisations that deliver to communities of interest, deliver to inclusion groups, and deliver thematically right across the district. And so it's also important that the rest of the sector have an opportunity to vote in also. So, one organisation, we're not accepting individual votes, it's an organisational vote, and you have a vote per locality. So if you want to, you can vote for all 6 localities. If we receive multiple votes from your organisation, we will contact you to ask which one is it. We have to be really clear on that one, but I think that gives us the opportunity to have as much representation from the sector as we possibly can. Voting will be open for a week, 1 week after today. Now that will be staggered so that each place that we've been to has exactly the same amount of time. So Keighley will end at 12 o'clock next Monday, Craven will end at 4 o'clock next Monday, etc. And voting will be closed next Thursday. Okay, we can go on to that bit. Yeah, that's fine. Next. I'm going to invite you up in alphabetical order based on your surname. So first off, I'd like to invite Sohail up to present. Sohail is a Bradford-based GP who lives in Bradford East and is also chair of Bradford for Better, a community action group with over 10,000 volunteers. He led the North Halifax PCN Wellbeing Partnership, and in his surgery created initiatives such as a podcast, walking group, book club, coffee mornings, and much, much more. Through his work, he has launched the Lifesavers project and offered free CPR training, NHS health checks in mosques and centres, and projects on bowel screening and GP access. During COVID, Bradford for Better gave trusted support across diverse communities and contributed to the City of Culture bid, showcasing the integral role of arts and identity in people's overall well-being. So welcome.
Let's take my hat off, we're on YouTube. Where do I need to stand?
Wherever you want to, yeah.
Yeah.
That's absolutely fine.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, good afternoon. So my name's Sohail, from Bradford for Better, representing Bradford Better CIC. But my kind of day role is as a GP based in Halifax, North Halifax, which is not too far off. It's just off the Manchester Road shelf. You might know it, very close to, well, it's on the border of Bradford and Halifax. So I'll start with the story that's defined my kind of last 5 years. And it's a story that, it's a conversation with a patient that I had a couple of years ago. I went to see a patient, her name's Brenda, and she's 90, well, she was at that point 91 years old, young, as she likes to say. And I'd go regularly to visits, but this one was very particular because of the conversation that we had. And this patient said to me, she was quite kind of isolated and she didn't really have anything medically wrong with her, but she asked for a home visit. So I couldn't work out why she'd asked me to come out. So we got into this conversation and she said something very profound to me that stayed with me all these years. She said, they keep telling us on the TV that we're living longer and we're blocking beds all the time, referring to herself as an elderly person in the community. And she just looked at me and she says, why don't they understand? We're not living longer, we're existing longer. And that made me think, we're existing longer. And she looked at me and she said, this isn't a life. I'm sitting here in this house. I haven't been out of the house for 6 months. I haven't had a conversation for 6 months. My neighbors don't even know me. I've been living in this house for 60 years. And she said, they keep blaming us for blocking the beds, for blocking the NHS. And then she looked at me and she said, why don't they just put us down? And she meant it. Why don't they just put us down? Why don't they just get rid of us if we're that much of a burden? I just looked, and she actually meant it as well. She was just fed up of life. And I was really moved by that conversation. I'll tell you what happened with Brenda later, but I'll tell you what happened with me first, so we can kind of get some idea of where I've been for the last few years in the work that I do. I went home that day, and I'll tell you, I couldn't sleep that night. I struggled to sleep. I kept seeing her face. I kept seeing her eyes looking at me the way she was talking. I said, you know, I've failed somewhere. I've failed. The system's failed somewhere. And the way I look at it, the last few years have been really kind of turbulent for me personally as a medical professional, but also as a sector, as the NHS, as a society, as a whole country, the world really, with COVID and everything. But we live in an instrumental age now. We're at a turning point in history where we have all the resources that we could imagine. You know, throughout history, we've not had this level of technology, social media, medication, advances in healthcare, all the instruments that we need to analyze and examine people. Yet, despite all these advances in technology, we have, in this day and age, the highest recorded heart disease, diabetes, strokes, cancer, mental health problems, drugs, alcohol, loneliness, all of these problems at the highest they've been in forever in history, recorded history. So what's going on here? What's the mismatch? What's happened? We've got all these resources, yet we're right at the bottom here. We're as a society, we're the unhappiest we've ever been in history. Now there's something wrong. We all know that. We all feel it. There's something wrong. So what is that, and why isn't the system working? So I get asked a lot. I took on a surgery to 2019, a surgery in Halifax, the one I work at still. It was a failing practice. It suffered for about 8 years, and I got involved and tried to pick up the pieces. There was lack of trust, lack of confidence, apathy with the patients, and I had to rebuild that. And that journey taught me what the key features are that we need to really work on. I'm going to summarize here, and we've got 1 minute left. But what I find the biggest barrier is in this day and age is apathy, which is hopelessness. People are hopeless. There's mistrust, there's lack of confidence, there's perceived barriers and real barriers, and people really don't know who to turn to. And our role here is to go to the basics, basic communication, basic connection. What unites us is greater than what divides us as people. We all want the same thing, regardless of where we come from, whatever postcode, whatever culture, age, demographic. What unites us is this hope for a better life, for a better health. We all want to be healthier, we all want to be better in ourselves and find the best version of ourselves to live that life individually and as a community and make this community better. So that's my role, that's what I do, that's my passion, my obsession as B4B. I can go on, but Kerry's already talked about what we've done. Am I done?
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Grilling time.
Do we have any questions in the room for Sohail?
Hi Sohail, thank you for your talk. Very interesting, and I like your perspective. Can you expand on what's your knowledge and connections of the Bradford VCSE community?
So my primary connection, really, I mean, I live in Bradford East. I live in the heart of West Bowling. I've grown up in Bradford. I've worked away from Bradford for a long time, but I came back to be part of Bradford. I'm chair of Bradford for Better, which is a district-wide organisation, grassroots. So we worked across the city, especially in COVID, and we have a network across the city of grassroots communities that we work with. And my connection really is through Bradford for Better in the sense that we've worked with people all across the city and organisations across the city to really be that voice of the grassroots people. Because many times what I've found from experience is that the mistrust and the lack of trust is usually with bigger organisations that seem to be sort of more red tape and barriers. And it's the grassroots voices that connect with people, and there's more trust than you build in that way. So that's my experience really working amongst that sector with organisations like Bradford.
Any more questions? I'm really interested, Sohail, you talked about barriers and perceived barriers. I'm wondering if you can expand a little bit about on what those are, particularly for Bradford East, and how they might affect integrated neighbourhood health.
Yeah. So actual barriers exist. Actual barriers is awareness, it's language barriers, it's educational barriers, it's resource and transparency barriers. Those are real, those exist. People don't have the resources, they can't see things in the languages that they understand, they don't get the information in the ways they need to get them. They might not, not everybody's going to go to a GP surgery or a health centre to kind of find out what they need to know, so they need to be more accessible where those are going to be relatable to them. But there's perceived barriers, and I see that every day. I get a phone call from patients every single day. Well, you can never get an appointment here, or there's never a GP available, there's never a nurse available. This is, unfortunately, a lot of times it's not true, but there's a perception, and I think it stems from probably COVID, before that as well, but there's lack of confidence, and that's not something that's objective or empirical. It's an emotion. It's not something that you can see, it's not tangible, but there's a perception that people are not doing enough, that people don't care, and they're not really available, or GPs are always working remotely or always on the phone and they never see people. And I hear that every day and I say, it's not true. People are working, they're seeing people, there's access, there's availability. So there's that divide of kind of perceived barriers that needs to overcome, and the way to do that is transparency and communication through the right channels.
Could I ask what strategies you'd use to engage with those communities that have a lesser voice, that doesn't always interact with health systems, so they don't seem to interact or have a voice? So what strategies would you use to interact with those communities?
So the strategy is basically finding out what the priorities are for those people. There's always a pinch point for an individual or a community or a society. There's a pinch point as in there's something that's their need, and that's something that isn't being fulfilled by whatever service that they feel that they need. Sometimes they don't even know that they have that need or that resource that's available to them. So really it boils down to having those conversations, creating spaces to have those conversations with communities of different backgrounds and say, okay, what is it that you need, or what is it that you feel that you don't have access to, and asking those questions. Then it boils down to simple communication and connection with the people and finding those spaces. We can't, as a GP, I will say this, I shouldn't be a GP surgery where people only come when they're unwell. We should be out there in the community promoting good health, not waiting for people to come to us that are not well anymore. And now, by that point, it's too late anyway. So we should be out there promoting health, not on a reactive approach of dealing with illness, but proactively promoting health. So in the same way, a lot of these people are kind of alienated or marginalized because they don't really even know what problems they have. And most people, when we've done health checks, we've done blood pressure checks, and 25% of the people we've done them on out of 100 have ended up with high blood pressure. Seriously high blood pressure that could have killed them, and they end up in A&E the same day after these health checks. Now these people, it's that old saying, knowing what you know, but the unknown unknowns. So they don't even know they had high blood pressure, but they don't even know what it means to have high blood pressure. So there's a problem there. They don't even know that there's a problem that they might have. So how do you get to the root of that and educate people to find out what those issues are and what gaps in their knowledge exist, so they can be empowered to help themselves as well? That makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm also wondering, Sohail, about capacity. So you're a GP.
Yeah, I'm wondering about that as well.
Yeah.
So do you want to say a little bit more about that, about how you envisage this might work? Because you'll have had experience of MDTs, multidisciplinary
Yeah,
teams,
yeah.
and working in primary care. So yeah, how do you think it might work on a kind of larger scale?
Me personally working in this role, or
Yeah, you personally, about your capacity to deliver in the role.
Yeah, yeah. The way I look at it is, I mean, there's two reasons. What all the work that I do, whether it's B4B, I run a boxing academy in town centre, I'm on my surgery, I do a lot of other things as well. There's a common thread in all of this. It's not different roles. It's not a day job. None of it is a day job. It's what I believe in. It's my passion. So the common thread is health, well-being, and transformation for people and communities. So that common thread is what ties everything together for me. So none of what I do I see as separate entities. It's all revolves around the same thing. And for me, this role complements everything else. I'm not going to have to learn something new or do something new to actually be part of this role. It complements everything that I'm doing already, everything that I've already done. So it's not extra hours for me. It's basically the same thing I'm already doing, the same passion that I've got, multiplying it into this capacity that I'm doing. So time-wise, yes, we'll have to work something out. But I'm here today. I was the first person here at 1 o'clock, straight through the door. I had a morning clinic. I've got an afternoon clinic. So I don't have a TV. I don't go on social media. I use my phone very little. So I think that saves me probably 5 hours a day. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so next up we've got Saadiqah, and Saadiqah is a community leader that is absolutely rooted in Bradford East, and she's anchored in CP2, 5 Lanes Ends Community Partnership, and she's got over 10 years experience of working in the VCSE sector. She has a clinical sciences background with a focus on social determinants of health. Saadiqah wrote that she convenes local partnerships, maps assets and gaps, and is really passionate about bringing community voice into integrated neighbourhood health. Her existing practice is absolutely centred on mental health and health inequalities, and she has built her career and built referral pathways in line with that, sharing insight and data to coordinate inclusive engagement and of course report the impact. She's turning neighbourhood priorities into practical action. This is what she does day to day. She represents the VCSE voice in locality forums, supports co-production and enables two-way communications that de-escalate barriers. Welcome, Saadiqah.
That's fine.
Something instead. Don't mind my presentation.
High production value on your presentation.
I made a movie, yes.
And it's streaming on all of these platforms.
I said we're gonna go big.
Yeah, go big or go home.
Exactly.
Oh, it's sources.
There we go. Yeah.
I don't think it's that one.
No.
We will get it back, I promise.
Okay.
2. No, it's always the last one, isn't it?
Is this how you demonstrate how you're like easy to adapt and flexible and all that kind of stuff?
Yay,
There we go.
There we go.
Excellent.
Got that. Right, hello everybody. My name is Saadiqah Begum, and I'm going for the locality for Bradford East. So I'll go through a little bit about myself, a little bit about Bradford East, a little bit about what our people are telling us and what the health academy is like across Bradford East, and then I'll go into what our commitments are and the plan that we have for the position, and then for question and answers. Are we going to go to the next slide? Or for? Sorry,
Both of us.
Oh, okay.
Either way.
Okay, so that's what I'll be going through today. And then next again, please. Next slide. Okay, so this is me. I'm Saadiqah. As Kay mentioned earlier, I've had 10 years in the voluntary community sector, very passionate about healthcare, health and well-being. I've been part of the Wellbeing Hub, Bradford East Wellbeing Hub to be specific. My journey has very much started in the Wellbeing Network. I've been part of the Women's Health Network. As you can see, I'm very passionate about women's health, about healthcare in general, and definitely about community. I've been working in Bradford East for, I think, 3 years now. But there's without a doubt nowhere as rich and as diverse and as vibrant as Bradford as a whole, and you really see the community come through in Bradford East. Personally, I am very passionate about communication, about collaboration and trust. I feel like transparency is very important, and we really see that in Bradford East with the organisations that we work with and the work that I've done. So in terms of the health challenges in Bradford East, so what do we know? Bradford East is actually one of the biggest constituencies in that we have, with 121,000 in terms of our population, and the work that we do involves, as Kay mentioned earlier, CP2, 5 ends. They're our community partnerships, and I work with both of them. We have the highest indices in terms of multiple deprivation. Our life expectancy is much lower, with 5 years lower than the rest of Bradford. Our health needs are in terms of MSK, cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, COPD, and those are just our physical health needs. In terms of mental health, we have the highest rates of serious mental illness across all of Bradford, with lots of depression and anxiety across the whole of Bradford. Our hospital admissions of self-harm in areas such as Ravenscliffe, places like Bowling, they're the highest across all of Bradford. And it's not just in terms of our adults, we have our obesity and child health needs as well. And those aren't our only health challenges in terms of literally, physically, mentally. In terms of digital literacy, language barriers, actual access to health, these are challenges that our people face every day, and it's very much a postcode lottery. Across Bradford East, it's very inconsistent in terms of the support that people have access to. There's not very much equity. So in terms of what do we know? So I would say that there's a range of pictures to show in terms of how we really know the community, whether that's the members of the public, the community that I work with, professionals that, just noticed the camera, sorry, the professionals that we work with, those across the sector, not just within the voluntary community sector, but statutory, with local authority, with our PCSOs, with DWP, with the community mental health teams. It's very much a network of networks. There's lots of work that we do with the health and wellbeing sector, with the primary care networks, through platforms such as Making Connections, which is very much about connecting with different organisations across Bradford, whether they're the big organisations, whether they're small grassroots organisations. And a big part of it is very much getting the word out there, whether that's through the radio or word of mouth, which we've definitely seen. And we really do see that the reach goes from grassroots organisations such as, don't worry about that, I'll just talk. We've seen that in terms of, with grassroots, in terms of Hope, which is a small food bank, to Shipley College, where we've just been awarded in terms of the Leadership Skills Awards. That really shows that we're really putting back into our young people and giving them the job opportunities, to a national level with the Wellbeing Network, where we were nominated by the HSJ for an award. So you see lots of rich work that goes on. In terms of what we plan to do, the screen really is not working for me today. I don't know if we need to move the mouse or something. But it's okay. In terms of what...
I think you might have updated it.
Anyway,
Well,
Okay.
it might be
In terms of what we'd want to do in terms of locality, big part of it is definitely mapping community assets, using the data that we have, working together to connect up different organisations across the voluntary sector, whether they're big or small, aligning the VCS voice with one clear message, bringing them all together as part of the healthcare system to overcome barriers, to improve access, to improve the lives of people across Bradford East. And without a doubt, it'll be starting in Bradford East, but the effects of what we will be doing will be felt across all of Bradford District and Craven. Thank you for listening. No, thank you.
Timing.
Technical trouble, it's okay, we work with it regardless.
open to questions from the floor. Does anyone have any initial questions, Saadiqah?
Start the ball rolling. Saadiqah, thank you very much. Sorry about the distraction.
It's okay.
The IT always has a mind of its own. So you work for Inspired Neighbourhoods in the north of Bradford East. How will you embrace and represent the whole.
No, absolutely. I don't know about north of Bradford East. I would definitely say that we're across all of Bradford East. In fact, we do a lot of work across all of Bradford as a whole. As Inspire Neighbourhoods, we are based in City Centre and in Idle, in Bradford East. But a lot of the work that we do within the Wellbeing Hub, it covers all of Bradford East. It's not just a particular area of Bradford North that we support. And you can really see that in terms of how we do a lot of outreach work in terms of different locations that we're based at, where we're supporting people. But then also in a lot of the projects that we work, because of the networks that we have, it's across all of Bradford. It's not just limited to just Bradford East.
Could I ask how do you plan to share the insights from the VCSE with the wider neighbourhood teams? So how would you share the information of what you found out? With the integrated team, so you sat on there, how would you?
Okay, thank you. So I think a big part of that is, firstly, like you mentioned, in terms of getting that information together, and once we've got that information together, working in partnership with the other locality leads. Like, I think it's very important to note that we're not doing this just alone as just one lead in Bradford East, working with organisations in Bradford East. It's very much going to be across Bradford District and Craven, and in partnership with the other locality leads. Whether that is a case of coming together within a forum and having a look at the work that we're doing and making sure that it is matching up, I definitely think that there has to be collaboration there. It's not something that can be done alone. It has to be done in partnership.
Quick question from me. So obviously this is, sorry, I don't know what that is. This is a big role. There's a lot you can do. Thinking about your first month in the role, what do you think your priorities are going to be?
Yeah. Okay, so within the first month, I think in the first week or so, first couple of weeks, is very important in terms of mapping. I think it's very much going to be a case of identifying organisations that we already know of and are working with, and there's lots of amazing information already out there in terms of Through Healthy Minds and FYI and Connect to Support. That amazing work has gone into that, and I think it's a case of bringing that information together. And then I think following on from this, working with the community and our partners in the next week or so, it is a case of identifying our key priorities and identifying where we want to take that action and what our needs are going to be there. And then I think in terms of the following weeks, it's just going to be a case of following up in terms of action, making sure that we've shared that information across and are able to make those changes. And then also the key point by the end of that month, what I would think we definitely need to focus on is making sure that we have those referral pathways in place. I think within the first month, if we're not able to, after having those discussions amongst our organisations, identify the pathway and how we can work together and making sure that that's a smooth process, we're not going to be able to actually take any actions. I know that they might be very brief and in very specific steps I think we need to take, but I think with something like this, within a month, there needs to be specific direct actions that you want to take and implement, because I think if you go too big, you're going to over-promise and underperform, and that's not what you want to do in a role like this.
Absolutely, thank you.
My question, Saadiqah, is you talked about collaboration and trust, and I'm wondering how you, specifically, how you go about developing trust with your with the partners that you'll be working alongside in order to collaborate.
I think a big part of that definitely comes from remembering and recognising, despite the fact that you're working with these organisations, at the end of the day, you're communicating and working with people. And I think if you remember that you're working with another person and you recognise the fact that you need to build that relationship, you need to build that rapport, that is the best way that you're going to be able to get any work done. In terms of trust, again, it comes back down to that communication. You're not going to be able to develop any networks, any work that you can do with another person if at first you're not connecting with that person. And because they're going to be a passionate person doing amazing work, there's no doubt about that. But in terms of making sure that you can build and do something together is going to be very much building that relationship. And I think that is something we have seen across Bradford East, lots of amazing people that we've worked with and really made sure that they're not kind of left isolated or working alone. It's very much about reaching out, going to see them, speaking to them in person, and then connecting up the work that you do.
Just ask, what indicators would you use to measure whether you've had impact on?
Ooh, that's a big question. I think at the moment, in terms of what's out there with the impact reports and the research that's already gone out there, I think it'd be a case of bringing them together. But then to see in terms of what impact has been done, I think it wouldn't just be a case of we would be deciding. I think we'd have to look back as a whole in terms of how it's affected healthcare systems, because I think a big part of it is the fact the healthcare systems wanted to be a lot more joined up. So I think in terms of impact, it wouldn't just be a case of we'd look at just the voluntary sector or just healthcare system alone and seeing the impact that it's had. It would very much have to be a collaborative look at what indicators do you guys normally look at, how many people are accessing our services, how many people are accessing your servicing, where is that balance, what is the change that has been, and if overall there is that improvement to quality of people's lives and not just in terms of expectancy. That's the only way that we're truly going to know. And I think there's a rich part in terms of case studies and knowing people's stories, because numbers aren't going to be as rich as knowing exactly how people have gone through this whole journey.
Any more questions?
Some might say this is just another step for Inspired Neighbourhood to advance its plans to take over Bradford and its mental health services. How would you counter that?
I would say, okay, that's an interesting question. How would I counter the idea that it's just an Inspired Neighbourhoods takeover of Bradford as a whole? Is that what we're...
Certainly expanded beyond its initial neighbourhood.
Okay, I don't think it's necessarily an organisational thing. I think our work speaks for itself. I think in terms of the organisations that we've worked with, in terms of the people that we've worked with, I think the projects that we've worked in, I think it really speaks volumes in terms of the Bradford East Wellbeing Core, our different campaigns in terms of supporting people with their mental health, with their wellbeing, with their lives. I think it very much speaks for itself. I don't think it's necessarily a look at Inspired Neighbourhoods as an organisation and as a name and as a brand in terms of what that represents, but really seeing the work and the effect and the difference it has made to the people in the community. I think that's something that speaks for itself and isn't necessarily tied to the name Inspired Neighbourhoods. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Great, thanks, Saadiqah.
Well done, Sadia.
Okay. Next up, we have Rubina and Sadia. Rubina and Sadia have been co-chief execs of this establishment, Women's Own, for 20 years. Together, they've led strategic growth and cross-sector partnerships in health, education and in social care. Working with diverse communities across Bradford East, they have delivered culturally responsive programmes that address health inequalities. In collaboration with statutory and VCSE partners, they have supported the transition from primary care into ICB structures. They are actively engaging with ongoing NHS England and with West Yorkshire ICB reforms. They recognise their impact on VCSE infrastructure, commissioning and funding. The future of public health lies in integrated neighbourhood health and aligning resources, intelligence and community-led prevention to meet local needs. So I'd love to welcome you both up. Are we having one presenter and one...
I've got a presentation.
Oh, I'm not sure if it's going to work. Do you want to try that computer? Yeah, that's probably better.
So Rubina and I are co-CEOs at Women's Own, for those of you that don't know. We kind of do everything together. So when it was the locality lead, we were a bit confused as should Rubina go for it or should I? So we've put in a joint proposal. So it's a bit of a buy one, get one free. So you get Rubina's skill set and you get my skill set, which are totally different. But both of us have over 20 years of experience working in the voluntary and community sector. We've been chief execs here for a while, but we did start off as project workers, so we worked our way up into our current roles, which means we know our service users, we know the communities that we work with, and we work predominantly in Bradford East, but our services are open to the whole of Bradford. So we get ladies coming from Bradford West, we get ladies coming from Pudsey, and our main ethos of the organisation is to empower women, support them in their health and well-being, and as a result, we believe that if you empower a woman, you're then empowering the whole community, because women talk. We talk to the neighbours, we talk at the school gate, we talk to other parents, we talk at work, and then if we learn something about high blood pressure, that bet another 100 women are going to learn about high blood pressure and how to tackle it. So one of the reasons we went for the locality lead was because we thought we were quite well placed in Bradford Mall, where we are. We've got good connections with other organisations in Bradford East, as well as organisations further afield in Bradford West. We work with organisations in Keighley, and we're part of quite a few consortiums as well. So we like to be very collaborative, and what we do find in Bradford East is it's a very competitive nature way of working, and we want to change that. I don't know if it's possible to change it, but we do feel like there is a more collaborative approach to the way we work, because ultimately when you look at Sohail and the Bradford for Better, or if you look at Saadiqah and Inspired Neighbourhoods, or the people that don't like Inspired Neighbourhoods, we ultimately all want the same thing. We want it to be a nicer, better place to live for the inhabitants of Bradford East. I don't live in Bradford East, neither does Rubina, but we spend most of our time here because we're here Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. We work with these communities and we know what the needs are on the ground. And we want to really be a listening voice for the communities and other organisations, so people can pick up the phone to either one of us and say, look, this is an issue, what are you going to do about it? And then we're hoping with the support of the VCS Alliance, we can take that voice to the right places and get answers and bring that feedback. And then it's like trying to be the go-between, isn't it? Between the strategic area and the operational working. It's something we haven't done before, so it will be a steep learning curve, and we're hoping we're the right people for the job. I do have this PowerPoint, right, let's have a look. And the idea is that this is the issue on the street, how do we work with it? So we're thinking of having quarterly meetings with all the organisations in Bradford East. We would like the meetings to be hybrid, so if somebody can't make it in, they can do it over Teams. Those people that come, they're welcome here, or we can have it in different organisations, just so that everyone feels like they're a part of it and they're not always the ones that are traipsing out and having to travel and find somewhere to park. So these meetings could take place in different places, and then we could find out what's the data, what's the evidence, what are your people finding at your organisation that we need to know about, and take that to the relevant places. And going back to the whole collaboration, working in partnership, if we spend time with each other, we kind of trust each other more. And then we can kind of say, oh, well, you know, I've seen Naz several times. I can pick up the phone and say, hi, Naz, I'm thinking about putting an application into so-and-so. Do you want in on it? And then rather than us all going for little pots of money, we join together, we go for a big pot of money, and then everyone in Bradford East gets the same care, rather than I've got the money at Women's Zone, so my women are getting a fantastic service, but over in community works, they're not getting as good because they didn't have the funding to put things like that in place. And ultimately, it goes back to empowered communities, which is what we're all about. So we believe that we should be the VCS lead because, like I said, we've got these relationships with grassroots organisations. We've been at Women's Zone. I've been here since 2007. Rubina's been here since 2006. I can't do the maths off the top of my head. But it's been a long time, so we know organisations. And we've had relationships with organisations where it's been really good, then something bad's happened, but it's always been like oscillating. We haven't like fallen out with anybody. It's always a case of let's work together, let's get things done. And if we kind of can understand people on a human level, then we can work together. I can't have talked for 4 minutes, Kerry.
Yeah.
Oh, how am I right? I've got a few more slides to go through. So it's basically the same as what Sohail and Saadiqah have said. You know, we will be the voice of the VCS sector. You tell us what the issues are on the ground. We take them to the relevant boards and we bring feedback back. And sometimes it is like Sohail says, where we hear people saying to us, I can't get a doctor's appointment. It's my own personal experience when I can't get a doctor's appointment. But who do we need to sit with to find out what is the best time to ring the doctor, or is it better to do it online? And then we can set up focus groups in all our communities to say, look, this is the best way to do it. And now I've got 30 seconds left and I'm getting really anxious. Yeah, I think we'd be good in the role because we are trusted by the community and we know a lot of the other organisations in Bradford East, and I feel like I've got no time left, but we want to address root causes by strengthening community infrastructure, which goes back to the point that I keep banging on about. We need to collaborate and not compete with each other. Be data driven, because that is what everybody wants at the top, and you know, kind of join up the strategic people with us on the ground people. And I'll just stop there because my presentation is obviously longer than 5 minutes, or I just talk a lot. Please don't have any questions.
Are there other slides?
There is.
Because maybe then, as we're doing questions and answers, Jess, you could continue to flick through those slides so people have an opportunity to see them. Fantastic. Okay, thank you for that. So, are we asking you both questions or one? Do you want to come up? We can answer questions together. Come on, Rubina. Is there any questions jumping out from the floor?
So, as you've got two heads between you, how are you going to organise that dual role?
So we've
one
worked
of you a
together.
lead and the other subordinate, or how are you going to do it?
So we've worked together for a very long time, and not many people can understand how it works, but it just kind of works itself out. Where between us, if there's a meeting to attend, we'll decide who's the best person to go to that meeting, and if there's something to prepare, then who's the best person to prepare. If it's like presenting, who's better out of us at coming out to do the presenting bit, and it just works really well.
Yeah, like I prepared, she presented, like she said, like, you know, we complement each other's. What I think I'm good at, I will do what Sadia thinks she's good at, you know, like, and so exactly the same thing we want to apply on this VCSE sector, that, you know, you can work collaboratively. We are working, it's been 20 years.
I think what Carlton's trying to say is which one of you would you take it alternately to go to meetings, or would you just decide which person would go first? How would you
kind of depend on who's the best
Who's the best, and we think if I've taken lead and I'm doing okay, but you know, like Sadia said, that, you know, we like to work together. The way our role somehow has developed, that for any reason Sadia is absent and if something falls into school half term, then, you know, I should have enough knowledge and I should know what we're doing, so that I can attend and I can carry on. So this is how we work. That's something maybe you people are not used to, but we
I think I am very passionate about young people and mental health, and I take a lead on those types of projects. So if that is what we were looking at, it would be me. Rubina does more older people's work and neighbourhood environment and things like that. So there's always something happening, and we like to dip in and out. So although I might be the lead on young people, Rubina will have enough knowledge that if for whatever reason I'm not able to make it, she will attend the meeting.
we keep each other updated all day.
Any more questions?
Just ask, I'm a big fan of the work that you do. It's amazing work in Women's Zone. You were on a podcast once as well, Rubina, with B4B, so I know the amazing work that you do. The question would be that as Women's Zone empowering women, can that be a barrier for your outreach, you know, being seen as a wider, because obviously Bradford East, there's all sorts of communities, men, women, elderly, youngsters, there's all sorts of things going on. So do you think the brand itself, you as a women's own brand, would that be a barrier in any way to you reaching those people? You know, people might see it as a women's own thing, and it's not, you know, men might be a bit more hesitant to be involved in this capacity or be able to get involved in the work that you do.
I think as locality lead, as I mentioned, we want to be the go-between between the voluntary sector and the VCSE, like boards and strategic panels. So it wouldn't be so much women's own. So when we run quarterly meetings, they will be run at different organisations in the area of Bradford East, and we will be looking at all issues. So if there's an issue around men's mental health that is coming up from different organisations, then we'll figure out, right, who's the right person that we need to speak to up here about men's mental health. So this isn't an organisational thing. I know we've got the Women's Zone logo and all our slides, but that's our general presentation. But it's not Women's Zone, although, like I said, the money goes to Women's Zone. It is Rubina and myself would be the locality lead. So if you've got an issue around men and they want to get into gardening, for example, you think, oh, I can ring up women, then you should be quite comfortable to ring us up and say, this is what we're trying to do to improve mental health amongst men, and how can you help us with that?
We have mentioned somewhere in the slide the co-production and co-designing, so then that will be with everyone.
So I've got a question about capacity. I walked in here about an hour and a half ago and this place was heaving. There were ladies everywhere.
That's the way we like it, Kelly.
And so,
Bursting at the seams.
and every time I come, you know, there's so much activity. And so I'm wondering, how are, if two of you are kind of out of that, you know, have you considered some of the challenges that that might actually have for Women's Own, and how might your team absorb some of that?
So we've recently employed an ops manager, I think maybe October last year, simply because there was a lot. And even though there's two of us, we both work part-time, so the ops manager is in a space now where she's kind of leading on a lot of operational things. The first 6 months were a bit tricky and she was coming a lot and we were supporting her, but now I feel like she's kind of got to grips with it. So we now are at that point in our careers which you don't really get in the voluntary sector, because you have to do it all. You have to do the strategic stuff, you have to do the HR, the finance, the admin, you have to get involved. I was opening up the other day. You know, these are the things in this sector that you have to do. But I think that kind of is now going to relieve us to be able to do things like this, which is where we think we need to be at this moment in time.
Great, thank you. Any more questions? No? Fabulous, thank you so much. Okay, and last but by no means least, we've got Carlton. Carlton has over 25 years experience in leadership roles in the VCSE sector in Bradford, and a BCEP in Manningham, and for the past 10 years as Chief Exec at Bradford Trident in Little Horton, where he's helped to oversee Better Start Bradford, which I'm sure I don't need to explain what BSB is, and the establishment of the community partnerships, specifically in CP6, of which he has actually been chair of for the past 2 years, and championed community funds prioritisation events around innovation. Carlton.
So, good afternoon. So I'm Carlton Smith. As said, been Chief Exec for Bradford Trident for the last 10 years. I've been working in the Bradford voluntary sector for the last 25 years. I was the chair of called VCS Bradford when it merged with Keighley and Bingley to become Community Action Bradford in District. So was at the helm, as it were, when that collaboration of the infrastructure organisations happened in Bradford. Partnership working's always been an integral key ethos for Bradford Trident, and many of our programmes are partnership-based work. We had the CLICS, Compassionate Communities work, through the Core 20 money a few years ago, working with the Carmen Centre and Girlingham Centre and our own workers. We've had Better Start Bradford, working in Bradford Moor, Barker End and Little Horton over the last 10 years, and great work that's done, and a lot of learning and insight has been developed, and that's informed local commissioning and working practice going forward, both within the statutory and the voluntary sector. And a lot of that's now been rolled out across the district and nationally. We're part of Arise Bradford, working with Royds and Inspired Neighbourhoods and others, working on bringing derelict houses back into key community use, and well, just about all our programmes are in partnership with somebody or other. I've been involved in the community partnerships pretty much since Helen Hurst's first meeting with GPs 6-7 years ago now, where she encouraged the GPs to form into the primary care networks, and following those footprints the community partnerships were set up. So I've been a party and involved in community partnerships pretty much since they're set up, and in the last few years I've been championing the work that's happened in Bradford to help National Health Services, National Health England, replicate that process across the rest of the country, and that's very much been recognised in the NHS 10-year plan. So that's both through representing Bradford's work through Locality and their National Health Alliance, and also through regional presentations through the Integrated Care Board. So I very much understand how the primary community partnerships work and how their capability and capacity has grown over the last 6-7 years, and a trust has been built up with the Integrated Care Board. So they're now giving community partnerships far greater say and control and agency of resources in our areas, and that's critical that we continue to build that capacity and capability and deliver on their priorities for both the NHS and of course our communities day to day. And the new 10-year plan gives us a great opportunity to continue to build that capacity and agency and local voice to deliver health outcomes for our people, and understanding how the system works and their needs and priorities and the key players within the decision-making boards, and that I think is critical to bring the maximum resources we can into Bradford East and to help our communities develop the agency, capacity and capability to deliver what they want to see in the health prevention arena in the area. And that's very much what I would aim to do as the locality lead in Bradford East. There's a lot of work to do on digital inclusion. Bradford Trident and others, and the local system has a start on that, but there's a lot more to do. Neighbourhood working is what Bradford Trident's all about, what I'm very passionate about, and I want to see replicated elsewhere. And that whole prevention agenda is what I've been banging on about with the community partnership since it was set up. We're not about treating people's illnesses, we're about helping people to stay healthy and live long, healthy, productive lifestyles. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlton. Thanks. Let's go with questions.
So you talked about building a local voice.
Yeah.
How would you go about to do that then?
So through the community partnership structures, it's already there to a degree. So there's community anchors within each of the community partnerships, and they're responsible for reaching out and getting supporting their local VCS groups to interact, learn, seize on the opportunities, inform and inspire their community partnerships to work with them to respond to the needs of their local communities. So it's using the structures that are already there. It's a big area, Bradford East, as Saadiqah and others have said, and we need to maximise everybody that's in the system to do that. Community events are vital as part of that, get the awareness of what the community partnerships are about. Not a lot of people know about us at the moment. They don't need to. What they want is the services that are commissioned through them. But if we want to increase the community engagement and the voice, then it's time that the community partnerships became a lot more visible to communities and how they're organised and set up. So both our community anchors and the groups around them need to make that more visible and obvious and spend more time listening.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think it's a question of a bit what James has said. So we've got a new emerging communities with a lot of new African groups and scientific groups, and you've got well-established communities that don't often get involved. Again, it's how would you use those mechanisms to make sure that those people's voices were heard, because there's issues around language barriers as well, and not trusting the system, and issues like that. So how would you get around that to make sure that they had a voice in the system and their voices were heard?
So I think there's two key bits to that. It's one, growing awareness of how the systems work in Bradford. So people new to Bradford need to understand how our health service works, how the local authority services work and others. And there's probably more to be done in that. But also community partnerships and their anchors and others need to go to where those people are and actively engage with them in those listening exercises to see what priorities are important to people, to stimulate their agency and capacity to say what they want to do, and then provide the support to help them to do it. And if it's a health creation activity that they want to do, then that very much fits within the community partnership remit, and resources should be directed towards those wants, needs and desires for action. So it's outreach as well as making awareness of the community partnership system and how people can influence it.
So would you, as the locality lead, be doing the outreach, or would it just be the community partners and the anchors?
It needs to be the whole system, so each of the community partnerships needs to step up and do more of it. Some of us have already done some of it already, so the community prioritisation of the commissions that Horton and City Health Collaboration put out over the last few years, invited people to come forward, listen to the presentations, and then prioritise, create their own prioritisation list for what they heard. That gives communities agency and control over what is delivered or funded in their area. So it's more events like that, I think, giving power and voice back to the community through organising those sorts of events.
It's difficult because there's a lot of apathy, because we've been around this, those of us have been here a long time, we've had neighbourhood forums, we've had all the other things, and again this is another one, so it's like, how do you alleviate people saying, oh, here we go again, you know, not another new thing, and getting them to be involved.
Because those sorts of events aren't just, we've got a plan, here it is, do you agree or not? It's, here are a number of local projects, you decide which ones. We can only fund this much, so there's probably 5 or 6 of them, there's 10 of them presenting, you prioritise which ones we fund. So it's giving direct power to people that, okay, those that can give the time and energy to engage with it, but there's only so much we can do, I guess. But it's making sure that invite is given out to all people to contribute.
Hi. So as someone who lives, works and leads in Bradford East as an individual, I think it'd be fair to say not just that we don't trust the system, also as organisations there's a lot of mistrust between us. How can I be sure as a resident and someone who works in Bradford East that all our voices will be heard? You will, as an individual, not as Trident, as our locality lead, really bring all our voices to that table, because we can't all be there.
Well, I don't think it's just up to me, but clearly as locality lead, it's up to me to lead. It's using the systems or the structures that are already there. So it's working with the community partnerships to enable and encourage them to reach out more and engage with their communities. So it's a big patch. There's at least 3 community partnerships that cover bits of it. Community partnership geography is bonkers, but anyway, that's another great. But it's supporting and empowering them, sharing best practice and bringing in new good practice on community engagement and those events and structures to hear and channel and compile people's needs and insights. So it's not easy. It's probably the most difficult bit of the whole community partnership structure and setup, but it's a critical one. The health challenges don't change very much. I mean, the health problems Bradford East has had, we've had for 10, 15, 20 years. Some are getting better, some are getting worse, but the general picture is the same. I think the key bit is to give agency to people to do what they can to create better health opportunities for people. and that's very much what I think the 10-year plan of the NHS is about, is diverting resources to community groups to deliver health creation activities, and the people that can then participate in those will see the rewards.
So, but how is my voice at the table, Callum?
Because
Through the community partnership,
if you're given agency to develop a project and present it as this will create these impacts, positive impacts in my area, then your community partnership will offer those out. If other community partnerships does what Horton and City Health Collaboration have done and enabled communities to prioritise projects, then they will organise events that give that agency and voice to local people.
So the CP anchors will arrange these events?
The CPs should, with their anchors, yeah.
Okay. Cool.
If that's how they want to do it. But again, it's each CP is slightly different, isn't it? Certainly how we do it in CP6, and I would encourage others, because it's worked well. It takes a bit of work to organise and share the information with people on the night and beforehand, but it's not impossible because we've done it several times now.
So do you see in your role that you'd be able to influence all the different community partnerships, because we know the Bradford East covers many, to maybe replicate some of that good work that you're doing in your partnership?
We talk to each other regularly anyway, both as anchors, community organisations, and as representatives within the community partnerships. So there is opportunity to share and inspire, share good practice and inspire others to adopt it. They're all autonomous, although they've got the trust and backing of the Integrated Care Board, but how they organise themselves is up to them. But as your locality lead, I'd certainly be pushing, encouraging and cajoling them to open up and be as open and transparent and informed by their communities as possible.
Any more questions? So I'm going to go with the capacity question again, Carlton, with CP chair, CP anchor, advocate, chief exec. Where is the capacity for you to really step into the locality lead role, and how are you gonna do that?
I'll do that as well. I sit on a couple of the committees as a better start. That's all winding down now. It'll come to an end December, so that frees up a bit of time. I've got half a day a week that will be freed up out of that, and this is what I'd like to spend it on. Whether I'm your locality lead or probably not.
Yeah. Any more for any more? Okay, thank you. Thanks, Carlton. Thank you so much. It has been such an incredible experience to travel across Bradford District and Craven this week and hear from all of those people brave enough to put themselves forward, and not only brave enough to put themselves forward to step into this role, but to also stand in front of an online room, a live stream, and people in person, and share themselves and their experience and their knowledge. And we have heard, and I think, you know, Jess, you've certainly been at all of them with me, we've heard so much passion and enthusiasm and commitment and determination about supporting the sector to be the best that it can be in each locality. It's been a real privilege, I think, for us to be witness to. So, voting now is open for Bradford East. So my call to action for all of you is to go out and let the sector know, make sure that the sector are engaging in this process. We've got a QR code which you can scan now. We'll also send it out. It's also on the live stream and it's on the Teams room. We've got a Microsoft form. If you would prefer to do your submission via voice note or a phone call, that's fine. We'll help you to do that. Or on paper, that's fine too. We want to be as inclusive as humanly possible. So whatever way it works for you, let us know and we'll make sure that we find a way that you can submit your vote. Again, one organisation, one vote per locality. As I said earlier, we finished in Keighley at 12 o'clock last Monday. Their vote will close on Monday, and you'll see all of the times are clearly outlined on the live stream versions. And Bradford East vote will close at around about 3:30 next Thursday, so Thursday the 18th. We will review all of that information. We had some really good questions earlier about is it any VCSE organisation? What's the eligibility criteria of an organisation that can vote? There isn't one, and we will do some checks and some due diligence to make sure that they are legitimate organisations that are delivering services across Bradford District and Craven. That will happen. And we will inform all candidates, whether successful or not, on Friday the 19th. It is highly likely that you'll receive a phone call from me direct, and we will send email confirmation out also. We will then make that public on Monday, the following Monday. So we've got a little bit of time to let it sink in. So it's a quick process, but it's really important for us that we really start to do the work. Some of you touched on, particularly Saadiqah, you were talking about actually the network of those 6 places. And you know, I certainly want to get started on that. How did that group of folk start to work together to have some consistent approaches? Because I think you said we're not alone, and you're quite right. And not only is it that group that would act as a peer network, but also the support that you'd get from the VCS Alliance. So there will be a relationship manager attached to this locality, which in this case is the lovely Carol, and you'll be working with me as well on that kind of how we build those accountability mechanisms between the collaborative groups and the individual localities. Other things that are important to note, across those 6 localities, they are all at very different maturity stages. Carlton was talking about the CPs and lots of work being done. So all of those CPs are at very different stages, and so you know it makes sense to me that the localities and the development of those are also different. So for example, there has already been a shadow integrated neighbourhood health team event in Keighley. So some are a little bit further than others. We anticipate that everybody will be in a formalised structure within each of those 6 localities by the end of the year. And I'll certainly be working with you all to make sure that we are supporting, as well as Carol, to support the development of those in each place. Are there any other questions of me? And the other bit, and I don't know if I mentioned this at the beginning or at our last event, but the Alliance do not have a vote. We are simply facilitating the process. Any more questions?
What if it's a tie?
What if it's a tie? Well, I guess I'd bring that back and say, what should we do? Say that again?
Can work in partnership, to work together.
Exactly. So that, I wouldn't necessarily see that as my challenge to fix. We'd bring that back. Yeah. Yeah, we designed something together. We've designed something different in every place already anyway. We've had some places that just had one vote, so we've done a positive affirmation vote. Yes, I have confidence, or no, I don't, and you know, we'll have to deal with that. We've had some places where we've, instead of maybe having joint votes, we've had people that have pulled out, and so we've had to transform them into positive affirmation votes. And so whatever it is that each locality brings us, we'll work it out, but we'll work it out with you. Yeah. Any other questions? Great. Well, thank you. And thank you to the Alliance team, particularly Jess, for creating such a uniquely extraordinary framework of technology for us to be as inclusive as we possibly could. So thank you, Jess. Yeah. Go home, travel well.
Last question.
Oh, go on.
Who have we got to thank for the cake?
Oh, I'm not sure. Rubina, who made the cake?
Well, one of our kitchen workers, I passed it on to her.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
You can take some with you if you want.
Get the Tupperwares out.
Mind you, she's been selected for one of the cooking competition.
Really? Which cooking competition?
And I can't think on top of my head. It's a cookery book they're being part of.
Ah, for
Indian
the
Brand-
BD25 one?
BD25.
Yeah,
that's
fantastic.
That's next week.
I think that's going to be a really good, an incredible book.
Is that the Cooking with Mother?
With Mother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's been selected for that.
Yeah, we've got a couple from the Dominican Association.
Amazing.
That they're part.
And thank you for
That's
hosting.
nice.